Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the meeting today. Could I ask Chris, please, could you open with the current here, please? Can you hear me, Chris? Yeah.
Oh, yes. Was that me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm happy to. Kia ora tātou, karakia tātou. Whakatakita hau ki te uru, whakatakita hau ki te tonga, kia makina kina ki uta, kia mai taratara ki tai. He ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora.
Thank you. Right. Sorry, I'm just reading the run list here. Oh yeah, just everybody knows where the toilets and exits are. I don't know whether you felt the shaking up us leaving this morning. I was sitting in Motueka and there was a quiet wee wiggle. So yeah, hopefully we don't get any more of those. And apologies. So I've just been told apology from the Mayor. Everybody else is here. So could I have someone move the apologies, please? Councillor Mailing, seconder, please. Councillor Christine. Mackenzie, yes, it came to me eventually. Any declarations of interest? Cool. Right, we have a late report, which is you would have had sent to you yesterday electronically. It was going to be originally included in the confidential section, but after the agenda was set, it was clarified that there are grounds to exclude this public, so now we heard in the public session. So could I have a mover and a seconder to accept the late report, please? Councillor Mackenzie and Roger.
One step. Interest. I know we have to advise pretty wide interests, but I probably should update my record for the fact that my wife, Catherine Taylor, has been appointed chair of the Nelson City Council Audit Committee. Okay.
Thank you. That's been noted.
Yeah, okay.
And we put on the interest register, I suppose. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not sure what envelopes I have.
All right. We go back to a mover and a seconder for the late item, please. Councillor Mackenzie, yes. The seconder was Roger. Yeah. Cool. Right. We'll hand over to Mike, please.
Apologies for the interruption, Chair. Can you just put the motion?
Sorry. All in favour, please.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Through Mr. Chair, the late item deals with the matters that we discussed at the workshop. Following on from that workshop, I integrated a large part of the SIPO, as it's referred to, into the main investment policy. In the past, we were going to keep that somewhat separate, but we are due to update the investment, borrowing and treasury policies for the long-term plan. It made more sense to incorporate those changes. I have given you a track changes version attached to the late report. You'll see there's quite extensive changes. That's principally because the original policy was developed in 2012 and the thinking from the committee and from councils developed since then. So that's a policy update. Also, we have a document referred to as the investment strategy. So you can imagine the policy is quite set, unlikely to need to be changed very often. It'll get reviewed every 3 years as we head into the LTP. The strategy is much more dynamic. It's under the strategy that you make recommendations, for example, what the mix of that portfolio we've been talking about might be. So the strategy more dynamic, can react faster to changes in markets and investment opportunities as they arise. I'm happy to take the report as read, but I might just cover off a couple of points. As with some other policies, because they've been prepared in a relatively short time frame, I've included in the officer's recommendation for the resolution the ability for editorial changes to be made for minor matters that are picked up or simply typos that appear within the appropriate documents. And also I've noted that while we have an investment policy and we have an overall strategy, the Enterprise Committee is yet to turn its mind to what a change in the portfolio in terms of growing the portfolio, reducing the influence of the legacy assets might be. And that is that change will come through the strategy, change to the strategy, but we will want to feed that through into the enterprise activity management plan and also into the long-term plan. So it's a matter we'll need to turn our minds to, or the committee will need to turn to mind to over the next 3 to 5 months. Other than that, I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions about the policy documents.
I unfortunately only had a chance to look at this about an hour ago, but just going through the February draft, there's a couple of references that I just wonder if that's really what we wanted to say.
Yeah.
One's on page 13, where we're talking about long-term and other legacy investments. And we say long-term ownership of private non-listed equities, high quality commercial assets within the district. Now that seems at odds with what we seem to conclude, that we may not just want to invest within the district. There's a statement saying high quality commercial assets can reduce the burden on ratepayers.
Yes, if the committee's comfortable with that change. The wording's a bit of a carryover from the
I'm sure it
previous
is.
policy, and I think in that conversation that you had around a properly diversified portfolio indicated there were likely to be investment opportunities outside of the district that made sense from an investment perspective. So we'll make that change.
And then on page 15, where we're talking about equity investments, it seems like we'd only make equity investments where there'd be strategic community value. I would have thought we just need to say strategic value, don't we? Again, to eliminate that restriction.
I'm just looking for the line, that's all.
Oh, it's on, I think it's 5.10.1 or 5.10.5.1. Halfway down page 15, council maintains equity investments and other minor shareholdings. And then it says equity investments may be held where council considers there to be strategic community value. I think it just needs to be strategic value or value.
I'm comfortable with that. If the other members of the committee are comfortable. Okay.
And then the only other one I had was in the where it talks about forestry at the top of page 17. And it says, and this is a new bit you've added, Mike, the forestry activity surplus may be retained in the activity used to fund other council activities or used to reduce rates and debt over time. Does that fit in with the other proposition of a 75% reinvestment of surpluses?
I believe it does. One of the considerations you might have is to retain some of that surplus because you want to smooth the release of those funds over time. So typically we would be aiming for that 25% release of net income each year, but you might determine, as we've got at the moment where we've been through, shall we say, the peak of the cycle for forestry, you might hold some of that back so that 25% is over a longer period, so you can fill some of the gaps that are coming up in terms of income available for distribution.
Yes, you might also decide to pay out more at some stage.
That is.
It could go right both ways, yes. Yeah.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. Just something I wanted to clarify, and I had to leave early when we had our workshop, and so you might have covered this then. But in the policy and the strategy, we talk about return expectations. And so we talk about generating returns which exceed the long-term borrowing cost of council, exceed the general rate of council rate increases. Now, I mean, I agree with both of those, they're good things. But I would have thought that we might want to have something in there that talked about kind of industry benchmarks for types of activities. So hypothetically, if we invested in I don't know, let's just say another forest plantation that actually was going to return us more than the long-term borrowing cost of the council, but actually was way below industry standard, then I'm not sure that I would be satisfied enough with that, because we might not drive the investments hard enough to actually get the maximum return.
I mean, if I could comment on that, because I thought about what the appropriate benchmarks and measures should be for all of the different assets for a long time. And specifically with forestry, I mean, I think you were here when I asked Sam whether there was a benchmark. It doesn't seem there is a sensible benchmark that they measure their performance against. I mean, I think when you consider any investment, you should consider it, whether it's better than its peers. But I think the ultimate benchmark, given our overriding desire to reduce the rate burden, has to be the cost of capital and the rate of rates increase. When we measure something's performance, the danger of having multiple benchmarks, in my experience, when you have an overriding benchmark like the long-term cost of capital and the rate increase, is, let's say we did end up with some global equities, and let's say they perform very well against global indices because they only went down 20%. They would dramatically have underperformed what our core benchmarks are, but we could pat ourselves on the back for saying, well, we did better than the benchmarks. So I think the overarching benchmark should just be those two, but we should always monitor all of our investments against some industry standard. But I don't think they should be a benchmark.
Okay. I may. Okay, so that's I would be happy with that, providing we had somewhere in our reporting system that actually required us to report the return on those investments against some other kind of industry standard. Because one of the risks I'm trying to mitigate here is actually about the feedback that I'm constantly getting from people out there in the community who intimately know our forestry operations and actually think that we are not driving them as hard as we should, and that in actual fact we should be able to get a lot more. So providing we report it against some other expected standard, I would be happy to go along. But we would need to record that somewhere to make sure that it happens.
Through Mr. Chair, the performance measures are set when we do the activity management plan. And so for each of these investments or each of these legacy assets, we'll be putting the performance measures in the activity management plan. That means when the financial and other performance is reported up to the committee, there'll be that comparison with the performance measures, in the same way you get performance measures flowing through to you from other council activities. So they're in the activity management plan, and they should therefore be reported up regularly to this committee and to council. The challenge will be, as Member Armstrong will probably attest, finding what is an appropriate performance measures or measures, because we don't want to have more performance measures than what we need. It's no good having 20 performance measures. It's what are the key ones that measure the performance of that particular asset or asset class.
Councillor Mike.
You don't worry about the surname. Performance measures are fine, but I think you need benchmarks when you're dealing with these sorts of investments. And when you're either reviewing the long-term liability of the investments, that's the time when you should be saying it's underperforming and overperforming. And I agree with everybody along this side here that you do need something or other, and whether it's in the activity plan or whether it's with the enterprise committee, we need to have some sort of constant review of these underperforming or overperforming assets.
Through the chair, I probably want them to clear the performance measures, including performance against benchmarks.
We have five parts to the draft resolution. Would I have a mover for that, please? Councillor McKinnon. Sorry, I'll get your surname right one day, Councillor Mike. Oh, say what I was going to say. And a seconder, please. Councillor Mackenzie. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, while we're there, confirmation of the last minutes, please. I have a mover to say that they're true and correct. Councillor Mailing, a seconder. Councillor Kinnaman. Mike, yeah. Yeah. Okay, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you. Right, so now we have a resolution to move into confidential business. Just take a minute while Nelson Evening Mail exits the room. So I need a mover to she can't get out. I need a mover to go into the confidential business. Yep. Okay, Mr. Armstrong, and a seconder, please. Mr. Taylor. Do I need to read that out? Okay. Yep.
And it's